In this video, we'll go over Valorant's roles and what it means to be good at each of them. What's going on, guys? It's your host, Sergeant Frost, and today we're talking roles. Roles are a big aspect of Valorant. Every role is different, and finding one that suits you and your playstyle can make a great difference when playing. So if you want to rank up and climb fast, maining one that fits you is gonna go a long way. So without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get right into it. First and foremost, what are roles and why are they there? So obviously there's four. You got Duelists, who like to duel and seek out engagement. You got Initiators, who help your team take control and get onto sites. You got Controllers, who both help take areas of the map and control the pace of the game. And you got Sentinels, who are masters at stalling and defending positions. The idea of these roles is that when you have at least one of each on a team, you'll have a decently balanced composition. So really, they're there to help players create a balanced team. Understanding how to play your role is crucial though. Just locking in an Initiator doesn't guarantee value. Your role requires that you understand the agents in it and requires a specific playstyle. If you really want to play aggressive, you're going to have a hard time playing, say, a controller well. So it's important to pick a role that fits you, your playstyle, and your in-game traits. Now, let's break them down. The first role we are going to dive into is the role that's focused on contesting and winning space for your team, and that's the Duelist. When you think of what it means to be a star Valorant player or hard carrying your teammates to victory, the Duelists are the first agent class to come to mind. Taking constant gunfights, being the center of action, and paving the way for your team's successes too. The best Duelists embody what it means to be aggressive and confident. They're always willing to push their mechanics to the limit. Do this well and you'll end up making a lot of space for your team. But what does it mean to create space? And can any agent create space? Technically yes, however, not all agents can create this space safely. Duelists are specially designed with a more selfish kit to help them make aggressive plays as safely as possible. A great example of this would be Jett's ability to smoke dash into bomb sites in order to be a distraction on site while being relatively safe in her smoke, compared to an agent like Killjoy trying to run it down on the site with her turret out. Being the first one to take a duel is what being a duelist is all about, so your mechanics need to be sharp. While it is true that all roles require you to be proficient mechanically, duelists are almost all or nothing in that aspect. Granted, some duelists are more kill reliant for impact than others, but the more gunfights they can win, the more they open up the map for their team. Currently, there's two subclasses of duelists, each having different abilities to help them frag out and get space. Those two classes are your movement duelists and your flashing duelists. Both are perfectly suited to carry games, but the movement class is generally stronger, though harder to learn. The reason for their success is because of their ability to be aggressive in neutral zones while remaining safe. Basically, because of their movement, they just have more options. Neutral zones are parts of the map that neither side spawns on with complete control over. Duelists are important here since you don't want your agents to have high value utility for retaking or holding sites in general, taking those risks. But you still want to gain space around the map so you don't get suffocated. If it feels like there's nothing your team can do and you just get stomped wherever you are, that's a sign that you're probably not doing enough. Here, being creative impacts the role greatly, as each different agent has unique different ways to finding windows into the defense. If you want to be the aggressive playmaker for your team, then this role is perfect for you. Now, even though the duelist role is less reliant on their team to make plays, that doesn't mean that communication is not important for them. I would argue that one of the greatest differences between a good duelist and a great duelist is the way that they help their team help them. Confidence and a willingness to be outgoing goes a long way in Valorant, but for duelists, it can make or break the player. Initiators are a duelist's best friend, since their utility gives them information about the enemy's position. I mean, think about it. Imagine how much easier it is for an agent like Jett to enter onto a site if one of the defenders is pinged by a Sova dart, or if the drone is able to clear some angles beforehand. Even on defense, these Duelist Initiator combos are extremely deadly and limit the attacker's options the more space you take. Breach and Neon are awesome examples of this playstyle combo. In short, to be a great duelist, you need to have some solid mechanics and a willingness to be aggressive and go first, having great communication and a creative brain. Now, before we talk about the brains of the operation, the Initiators, we first have to tell you about our new ProGuides subscription. For those of you who are truly serious about improvement, we highly advise you check out our website, ProGuides.com. Here you can unlock your full potential by getting lessons from some of the best Valorant pros like Tens and Screen. You'll get access to all of our boot camps, and you'll even get 10% off live coaching from our Immortal and Radiant level coaches. Get started now for just $8 a month, and you'll quickly see yourself climbing the ranks. Now, when the Initiator class comes to mind, most players think of lineups and OP flashes. But there's actually way more to the role than just knowing a few lineups or having a few good flashes. If you consider yourself a team player and you enjoy pulling the strings behind the scenes, then this is the role for you. Behind every top fragging Jett should be the Initiator racking up 10+ assists. The goal of Initiators is to gather information about the enemy team and make taking space easier. Now, don't get me wrong, some good lineups are always helpful for not only knowing exactly what your utility is revealing, but also to make sure you get max value from that utility. But what if I told you it's not about where your utility is used, but really it's when you use it? An initiator's patience will determine not only how the start of the rounds will be played out, but how your team recovers if something goes wrong. Timing is the most important aspect of playing the initiator role. You could have a good dart or flash, but if it's mistimed, it effectively goes to waste and could lead to even hurting your team. Remember how I said that great duelists are always looking to work with their initiators to gain advantage in their fights? Well, the best initiators go out of their way to set up plays with their duelists too. If your duelist is having a rough game, a good initiator knows how to set the team up for success. Thinking ahead and executing plays based on the enemy weaknesses is the epitome of the role. This is because it's almost impossible for initiators to follow up on their own utility. If you were to dog or drone into a position by yourself and clear it, by the time you walk to where the utility ended, the enemy might have already moved into that position. So, since no one was able to capitalize off your utility, you lead yourself into a trap. Having good timing is rooted in communication, however, it is not needed if you pay attention to what your teammates are doing on a round-to-round basis. It's important to remember the timers relevant to the initiator you're looking to play. An excellent example of this would be Sova's dart. Sova starts the round with one charge of his recon bolt, and after it is used, he doesn't have it back for 40 seconds. Use this information well. If you go slow, you can use it for free, but by the time your team is going for a hit, you will want to have it back. A well-informed team will always be better off than a team whose initiator isn't really considering what their utility is helping to achieve. As rounds progress, however, you will find that this isn't always about your team. At the start of the round, yeah, you get value by staying alive and playing around them. But once they die and you're last left, it's all up to you. Which means this role is awesome for people who like to clutch it up. If you're busy droning, dogging, ulting, and flashing, you will almost always be the last one into combat situations. This means playing the role correctly will result in you having more chances than the average player to have high impact end-round plays. Not to mention, initiator abilities are perfectly suited for finding the remaining enemies for a nice advantage. Lastly, if mechanics aren't your strong suit, Initiator will be nice for you, since no matter how bad your aim might be on a given day, you can still have insane impact throughout a game. This role is for those who have extreme patience, solid consistency, good map awareness, and clear communication. However, if Initiators don't really do it for you, fear not, there's 2 more roles to go. Before we move on to controllers, first we need to know, what agent role would you like to see added next? Personally, I would like to see another Sentinel. When Chamber was added, it always felt like a Duelist Sentinel hybrid, and the true Sentinel identity wasn't really there. So I'd like to see Riot give it another shot, and try to come up with an agent that maybe fits the role a bit better. Honestly, I'm okay with anything though. So what about you guys? What role would you like to see added next? Make sure to put your answer in the comment section down below. The controller role is looked at by many people as the most boring role to play, but this is far from the truth. Controller is a role built for players who like to think outside of the box. Yes, the basic job of a controller is to smoke off the common angle or angles your team can't safely hold. However, once you achieve the mastery of basics, that's when you can start to use your brain to slowly and systematically destroy the enemy team. A controller's primary job is already important, smoking off dangerous angles so that enemies need to think twice before pressuring your team. But you're also denying information for your team's positions and delaying enemies from aggressing. You can see this being done on both attack and defense, and it's the foundation of the role. Being consistent is a massive part of what it means to be a controller. If you miss just a single smoke or time it wrong, you should basically expect your team to lose the round. If you've ever wondered why the controller agents are given the names controllers, it's because of how they impact the flow of every single round. An example could be if the enemy decided to do an all-out C push on Haven. One Omen smoke at the entrance is going to have the entire enemy team thinking twice about whether or not they are making the correct play. This is what it means to section off the map from the enemy team in order to lock them out of a position. Controllers decide what bomb sites are open for their team to go to and what parts of the map need to be controlled for success. This is an extremely important position in Valorant, and one with a high skill ceiling meant for those who love to grind for movement. To give you a taste of what's to come if you want to fully dive into the controller role, one of the more advanced controller concepts is that of creating timings. A timing is basically an area of the map where the enemy team could be playing in or could have walked through, even if they haven't. Using timings, you can manipulate the enemy team into holding positions where your team is nowhere to be found, or you can help your teammates achieve god tier flanks and lurks. Some examples you might use in your ranked games are on Haven. Many players will throw an Omen smoke at the top of C long to deny information and create timings down to the C long position. Or maybe a Jet Omen smoke on A long to create a possible timing down short A. Just using smokes, you create positions of the map where the enemy team needs to commit either utility or a player themselves to hold down. Along with timing, tempo is the other half of what makes the controller role skill ceiling. All tempo means is how quickly or slowly your team is operating around the map. In almost all cases, the attacking team will control the tempo from round to round, and the controller agent largely dictates what your enemy team's tempo ends up being. An example is the difference between Omen and Brimstone. Omen wants a slower tempo since his smokes recharge, and he can only place one of them at a time, while an agent like Brimstone wants to throw his stim and storm into a site while dropping all of his smokes at the same time. Determining how you use each controller agent from map to map is why the skill ceiling is so high, and why almost all controller players do not one-trick an agent. Some controllers are even hybrid agents that are able to fill the jobs of other roles to a lesser extent. A fantastic example of these agents are Astra, Harbor, and Viper. Viper and Astra not only perform the job of a controller, but pushing onto a site they are holding can feel like a nightmare on attack. They both share a hand in the Sentinel cookie jar as far as defending goes. While Harbor is sort of a controller-initiator hybrid since he covers both those long angles but helps your team clear sites safely with his wave, and is Cove and Ultimate too. So if you're the type of player who wants to mastermind the game through agent and map knowledge, insane macro, and slowly perfecting a craft, then the controller role is probably for you. The final role we will be covering in this video is of course the Sentinel role. The role for players who love to play on their own terms and want to set traps for the enemy team. The main goal of any Sentinel is to retain control of areas of the map that are high value. Examples of this would be bomb sites or your team's flank on attack. Sentinels are equipped with utility that aids them in fragging out the enemy team. Pair this utility with a good memory from round to round and you have a role with almost unmatched impact. But the way you use this utility is what really determines how impactful you're going to be in this role. Being a good Sentinel is more than just Googling one setup video. If you want to do it properly, you should be able to adjust your trips, turrets, and mollies on the fly and do so in an effective yet unpredictable fashion. This is where having tailored setups for every map can come into huge effect and win your team rounds. You always want to be taking fights on your terms and using your utility to get your kills. If you are taking fights with the enemy not being affected by your utility, you're doing something wrong. Bad Sentinels surprise their enemies once or twice, and then see themselves getting countered the rest of the half, while good ones continue to carry their team over all 12 defensive rounds. You want to be all over the map, switching from A to B to mid and back to A again with different setups for each. Playing Sentinel is all about gaining an advantage before you even hit the Q button through crazy preparation and fundamental understanding. Excellent utility usage can even circumvent the troubles of below average aim. Anyone can kill someone held in place by a Cypher trip lighted up through a cage. Now, what happens if you want the perfect setup but the enemy team never comes to your bomb site? Well, you just lose the game. Actually, it's just unlucky. And of course, I'm kidding. When the enemy team is avoiding your bomb site, that's actually a massive advantage for your team. However, many Sentinel players don't understand what they need to do in order to take advantage of this read of the enemy team. If you have been playing around B 3 rounds in a row, you can either switch the bomb site you're playing or you can play around it by having your team stack the other bomb site. The Sentinel role is for those who are trying to develop an understanding of the enemy's attack patterns and punish them for it. It's for players who pay attention to every detail and set traps that no amount of aim can bail the enemies out of. What about on attack? Is your utility useless? Absolutely not. Your number one goal on attack is to make sure your team is never getting flanked by the enemy. You can achieve this using utility or by trying to gain information by pressuring the opposite sides of the map. Many pro Sentinel players are known for their amazing lurks pulled off because of their understanding of the map and the timings of rotation. Not to mention, even if you go with your team and capture a bomb site, having defensive utility to help prevent your opponents from trying to retake can be some of the most round securing ability usage in the game. Planning ahead, remembering the smallest details of a round, setting traps, and beating enemies with your brain over aim is what the Sentinel role is designed for. Valorant has so many agents all with crazy different jobs and playstyles. As every player is different, so is their perfect role, but hopefully this video gave you a better idea of what fits you. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.